Hello, LOC community. My name is Richie Jones. We are here at Contact in the Desert 2017. Final day, unfortunately. It's been a great weekend here for the past 4 days. We've got to talk to some incredible people. And right here in front of me right now is one of those incredible people. This is Mr. Andrew Collins, a renowned author, researcher, explorer, just has an amazing body of work. So, Andrew, I just want to say thank you for being here today.
No, it's my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me here.
Andrew, back in 2009, you wrote a book called Beneath the Pyramids. A lot of people may not know about that work. What did you discover in the Great Pyramid in 2009?
Well, Beneath the Pyramids, which obviously is the title of the book which I did, we discovered a previously unrecorded cave system that ran from the northwest corner of the plateau, somewhere that nobody was basically allowed to go or really had any interest in, inside an unknown tomb which subsequently became known as the Tomb of the Birds. We found an entrance in 2008 into this deep natural cave system that was very dangerous, very hot, full of bats, full of poisonous spiders, and other creepy crawlies, which we had to navigate over tens of thousands of years of debris having fallen from the ceiling, which in the total darkness, in a manner which we could have, fallen down chasms or anything at any point. We had no idea what we were doing. And the opening chamber was massive. I mean, it was about, 150 feet by 150 feet. I mean, it's massive. And then it goes into various other, corridors and things like that. And eventually comes to a little tube, right? And we reached there after the fourth attempt of going in there. And we decided at that point we wouldn't go any further. I regret it to this day, because others have since done that, because you looked at it, you could see all these bugs in it and the rest of it. My now ex-wife was actually willing to continue to go, and I just actually said, no, we've done enough. And we were also beginning to suffer from carbon dioxide poisoning, which we only realised the symptoms afterwards. There was a sense of euphoria, but with it this sense that you wanted to just sit down and just stay there. And apparently that's the first signs, and almost the only signs, that you get of carbon dioxide poisoning. And the reason why that was occurring is obviously a lot of the oxygen was being taken out of the air by the bats, thousands of bats. I mean, one of them hit me in the face at one point, and it leaves behind this vacuum which is filled by carbon dioxide. And so it was a very dangerous place to be. But having said that, we came out of there. There was no hieroglyphs in there. There's a few weird scrapings on the walls, which were unquestionably done by humans, parallel lines, things like that. The chances are it's been there for tens of thousands of years, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And it may even be that, archaic humans were in here. It clearly had an effect on the use of the Giza Plateau for the construction of the pyramids, because the ancient name in Egypt for Giza was Rostau, and Rostau means the mouth of the passages, which is a clear reference to the entrance into what they refer to as the Duat, or the underworld. So this was the place that was considered to be the corridor or the tunnel that you had to pass through to then rise to go to the afterlife amongst the stars. And they had physical representations of this, and one of which I think was this cave system at Giza.
As far as the pyramids go, I know a lot of people believe still to this day that they were a tomb system. In your own opinion, what do you believe the true meaning and the true use of the pyramids truly was?
Well, I'll be a little bit conventional here, if I may, because I do believe that they were probably constructed as what we might modernly call tombs. But when we talk about tombs, we get the idea of some kind of tomb inside a church or a cathedral where there's a dead body lying and people come and they pay their respects. That was not what they were doing in ancient Egypt. They were creating what might better be called Ascension machines. You know, this was to form a direct link between this world and the sky world. And to do this, they would orientate the pyramid in exactly the right way. They would align them to the stars. They would build and incorporate within them an incredible geometry, which resonated not just with nature, but the movement of the stars around the celestial heavens. And this was to lock in these sites into this greater scheme of the cosmos, to make it easier for the pharaoh and presumably others, even shamans and things like that, or what we would call shamans in other cultures, to achieve those altered states of consciousness. And I think that this is a better way of perceiving places like the Great Pyramid. But even that, I think, is only touching the surface of some of the importance about, let's say, the Great Pyramid, which encodes key numbers, particularly the number 121, which has become very important with the discovery of this alien megastructure around this star in the Cygnus constellation called Tabby's star, or KIC 8462852, which is kicking off this weekend big time. I don't know if you're aware of all that, are you?
I'm not. What is going on here?
All about that. Well, in 2009, NASA launched the Kepler Space Telescope. Its idea was to search for Earth-like planets, which it did very well. Over 1,000 been discovered so far, with another, probably another 1,000 candidates waiting to be investigated. But it also gained information from a star in the Cygnus constellation, that Cygnus, the celestial bird or swan, which was doing some very strange things. And it was the only one of 100,000 stars doing this, and it was dipping the light that we receive from that star by anything from 17% on one occasion, 22% on another. And many theories have been put forward as to what's going on here. But the coolest answers, and the ones that everybody clearly is rooting for, is that it's artificial, something big and huge is going around there. Perhaps something called a Dyson sphere, which is this huge mechanism to try and draw energy from a star for use by an alien civilization on their home planet. And that this is what's there, an alien megastructure. And just this weekend, the drops in the light have begun again. This is the first time since all this came out in 2015 that we've had a chance to point as many telescopes as available around the world at this very spot. So at this very moment that we're talking, there are from the biggest to the smallest telescopes all pointing at this one star, Tabby's star, and looking for changes, the colour of the so-called spectra, the light changes, looking at it in radio waves, SETI are looking at it, X-ray, infrared and visible light, to try and come up with some answers. And of course everybody's rooting for, or routing as you say over here, for the alien megastructure, the so-called Dyson sphere, after Freeman Dyson, the physicist who first theorised this idea in 1960. But it's far more interesting than that, because there are certain periodicities, as they refer to them in astronomy, or orbits or cycles, that are being broadcast by this star and are being recorded in this information that was, this raw data coming through to the Kepler Space Telescope, that when added together, or say added together, sort of multiplied or divided, provide only a few very important key numbers, all of which seem to be associated either with the golden angle, or this mathematical formula known as Pascal's triangle, which is all based on series of 11. And the first of which is 11, second which is 121, which is 11 squared, third is 13, 31, which is 11 cubed, etc., etc. And this formula is used to produce the Fibonacci sequence, to solve problems of probability, and other weird types of mathematical predictions that are used in things like Wall Street and whatever. I don't really understand that. But what I do understand, and is the strangest thing, is that these very same numbers, particularly the number 121, is the key number associated with the Great Pyramid. The geometry, the design screams out the number 121. My colleague Robert Bouval has been looking into this, writing a book about it, and others as well. And you begin to wonder whether the ancients were aware of something that we're only now beginning to understand for the first time that's going on up there in the sky. And you say, well, okay, how is all this linked? Well, the fact of the matter is that Tabby's star is 1,300 light years away. Any communication would take that amount of time to go from one to the other. And also, at the moment, they're looking at us as we were in 700 AD. So what's the answer? Well, working on a quantum level, quantum entanglement, the idea that all systems are linked on a subatomic level, means that things like telepathy and remote viewing and that become possible. So why can't we, cut out the middleman, as it were, i.e. physical reality, and just go straight to source and just communicate with any potential alien intelligence up there? But the weird thing is that they could reply back to us by doing something, but the problem is that entanglement works across time. There is no time on a subatomic level, so they could be influencing 1,300 years ago, they could be influencing the future, or they could be influencing the minds of the architect of the Great Pyramid to encode all these ideas in the first place. And that's simply because we've begun this loop, we've completed this loop, this weekend, today. I mean, this is what I've been doing in my lectures. So, it's a very, very interesting time.
Do you see a correlation between the importance of what we see as 1111? That is a very prime number for a lot of people. They see that number often. Do you think that may be a way of getting us to see 121 and kind of relate to that number as well? It's just we haven't connected the dots yet.
I think it's something that's going to resonate with us and be found in ancient traditions all the way along. I learned just today, for instance, that the number 121 was a number associated with death in ancient Egypt. Well, what's important here is that the Cygnus constellation, the celestial swan or celestial bird, also known as the Northern Cross, has been seen as the entrance to the land of the dead for many thousands of years, not just in Egypt, but in Gobekli Tepe, this fabulous stone circle complex in southeast Turkey, built 11,500 years ago, and it's even in the cave art found in caves of southern France that are at least 17,000 years old. They all show the Cygnus constellation as the point of entry into the sky world for the dead and also the soul of the shaman that could achieve this type of connection through altered states of consciousness.
Going back to Göbekli Tepe, your newest book is called The Genesis of the Gods. Göbekli Tepe, as you said, is an ancient civilization that was basically, I guess you could say, backfilled, basically, and was dug up. What does your book, Genesis of the Gods, go over in relation to Göbekli Tepe?
Well, the book, which is actually Göbekli Tepe, Genesis of the Gods, is a book that not only gives a perfect account of all that we know about the site and its discovery, but goes on to show that the reason most clearly for its construction is that it's a reaction to a terrible event that took place in about 1,200 years earlier, and with an aftermath that lasted many hundreds of years. That was a comet impact event around 10,800 BC that caused wildfires and floods and periods of darkness and the melting of the ice sheets and terrible devastation that triggered a mini ice age that lasted 1,200 years, right until almost the moment of construction of Gobekli Tepe. And I show that there's comet imagery at Gobekli Tepe, and that almost certainly it was constructed as a response for shamans to enter into otherworldly states to try and counter the baleful supernatural influences that were seen to be responsible for these disasters that were obviously connected with the comets, and were seen that if they could not be averted, the end of the world could come because it nearly happened before. And that's what I write about. Clearly, it wasn't just for that, but no doubt that it was built as a response to this terrible event.
These altered states of consciousness that all these civilizations talk about, um, in today's society, these altered states of consciousness, I think, are kind of being, there's kind of a war against them. What do you think is possible through altered states of consciousness in our current society?
Well, I think that what is achievable is not only a new awareness of the world and the universe around us, but also to download deep knowledge and ancient wisdom, to be able to see and glimpse the past and even the future, and be able to draw that information back to the time of the present. And there's no reason that we can't do that using quantum entanglement, using meditational practices, and other forms of experiencing.
As far as what you've got on the horizon, what is coming up for you soon? Are you doing any events? Are you working on any books? What is up next for Andrew Collins?
Well, I have a book coming out at the end of the year called The Cygnus Key, with the subtitle of The Denisovan Mystery, Gobekli Tepe and the Birth of Egypt. The Denisovans are this distant cousin of humanity who were giants, who existed down to about 40,000 years ago, and may well have gifted early cosmologies and ideas in everything from music to stone tool making techniques, to what they call advanced human behavior, which became the foundation of our own human civilization. And the ground zero for this was southern Siberia, between the Altai Mountains and this huge inland sea called Lake Baikal. This seems to be the origins of the point of a lot of cosmologies, particularly to do with the symbol of the swan, which is the main symbol of the Cygnus constellation. If you're interested in anything that you've heard here in this interview, come on to www.andrewcollins.com, or obviously find me on social media. I'm there.
Andrew, thank you so much for your time today. I know today's kind of a crazy day. You're probably ready to go home, but we really appreciate your time, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.